Alright, so it's episode 12 of this particular program, and I figured to celebrate we would cover a slightly different genre than black metal or prog rock or whatever the hell else I talked about on here. This week we're going to be talking about grindcore, and as an intro to grindcore, why don't we listen to a typical grindcore intro from the band Wormrot. Nice and heavy, just like how Tommy likes his women. Same riff, but subtle texture variation, which is very important in grindcore. Textual variation, because grindcore has very short song lengths, but a good grindcore band inserts enough variety into these little short song snippets to generate a sense of temporal suspension. So it seems like time is going slower than it actually is as you focus on the music. If you're really good at it, you can make a 30-second song sound like a regular 4-minute long song because you put in enough dynamic variation, enough ingenious riff pairing, enough of a sense of overall journey to the song rather than just bleh. Like there's a little bit more to it than that, although the bleh is very important part of grindcore. So Wormrot put out a couple albums around 2009ish. I saw them both times they came on tour here. They were very impressive. Then they went on a hiatus and they came back in 2016 with their third album, which showed a very startling evolution, as you will now hear. So you can hear it's still dissonant, but it's also very tuneful in a way. You know, there's a sense of melodic development to it that you don't always hear in grindcore. But then here it comes, watch this. So yeah, no, and a lot of the songs on that album alternate between those two styles. It actually reminds me of something that Brett Stevens said in his review of... What the hell is that?
That was the Brett Stevens alarm. I took the liberty of installing it when you were out gallivanting with fair maidens.
What's going on with the voice there, guy?
I changed it since I felt like my name being Niggerbot, I should have a more testosterone-laden voice.
Point taken, but this kind of throws a wrench in my plans to give you a female voice with a Russian accent.
Wait, what the fuck?
Stop it. Get some help.
So anyways, in his review of Suffocation's Despise the Sun EP, he said he felt like the song was tearing itself apart as it was building itself up, and I feel like Wormrot do that really well on their latest release. But as far as the weird kind of dissonant melody thing they've been doing, I think they've been listening to a lot of Discordance Axis and Gridlink. Well, who the hell is Discordance Axis and Gridlink? Well, let me tell you. Discordance Axis was a grindcore band from the mid-90s that basically helped redefine the genre. Later on, they broke up, and then the vocalist from there went on to form Gridlink with some new musicians. So even though he was just a vocalist, he was very involved in the songwriting process and kind of the overall feel of Discordance Axis. That new band was Gridlink, and that was actually how I got introduced to Discordance Axis, was because Brett Stevens, yes, thank you, Brett Stevens recommended it in a review back in 2008 or something like that. So Gridlink, one of the main things that makes Gridlink great is the guitar work and songwriting of one Takafumi Matsubara, who does a lot of interesting, almost melodic stuff with a little bit of thrash influence, like you're going to hear in this track. So, a little bit of thrash in that riff, but very sped up and grindcore-y. Now watch the contrast here. Almost sort of a melodic death metal riff that's harmonized in kind of a new wave of British heavy metal sort of way, which is unusual for grindcore, but Gridlink is an unusual band. See, the thing about a lot of grindcore is it's either got regular gore lyrics or else it's got kind of generic political lyrics, but I think the guys behind Gridlink are a little bit more intelligent, so they put a lot more thought into their lyrics and music. For example, in the final song on the second Gridlink album called The Last Red Shoulder, we see the line, "Not even sharks offer up their own young. I want to hear you scream until it becomes the flat drone of tinnitus, until the ground is pollocked with your offal and blood. I want to see you leave this life screaming and find nothing afterwards." So the first line there is sort of a commentary on intergenerational struggle that I think actually applies pretty well to our fight with Der Irrwig Boomer. Not even sharks offer up their own young. So sharks are very predatory, violent, primitive animals, been around for millions of years, and yet they take care of their young, whereas us, not so much. I want to hear you scream until it becomes the flat drone of tinnitus. That's just a cool thing. Until the ground is pollocked with your offal and blood. So Pollock, referring to Jackson Pollock. So it's like,
you're so ugly you could be a modern art masterpiece.
Like he's killing these people that have betrayed him until the ground becomes a Jackson Pollock painting made out of their guts. You know, good stuff. Really good lyrics. They also have another song on that album called Dar al-Harb. Those of us who are up to date on our Bill Warner will recognize that term. Dar al-Harb is an Islamic concept. So in Islam, there's two worlds, Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Islam. Dar al-Islam, self-explanatory, the world of Islam. Dar al-Harb, the world of war. So everything that isn't Islam is something to be warred against. And obviously, Gridlink are not terribly happy with this turn of events, as evidenced by the fact they included lyrics like, "Sprung monster closet of the Dar al-Harb, the long knives of the prophet held close at my throat. I jammed the knife in through myself to get to you." So also a little bit of a Night of the Long Knives reference. Really good metaphorical lyrics that are poetic, and it fits with the overall tone of the album. So those lyrics are very brutal and nasty, but also very poetic and beautiful, just as the songwriting is all very short and compact and nasty sounding, but also very complex when you look deeper into it. And that's why I think Gridlink and Discordance Axis before them are perhaps the best grindcore band of all time. So this Discordance Axis thing I keep talking about, that was John Chang. His prior band to forming Gridlink was called Discordance Axis. He also had a guy in the band on drums who's been in a bunch of bands. His name is Dave White, maybe?
The Democrats have declared war on whites.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry. And of course, the main brains behind Discordance Axis, the guitarist Rob Martin. So, Bob Martin?
I had to kill Bob Morton because he made a mistake. Now it's time to erase that mistake.
Okay, that last joke was a bit of a stretch, but those three guys, that's like the grindcore dream team, especially Robert Martin. Like, he's amazing. He actually had to basically quit music because he got seizures from standing too close to the amp while he was playing some sick riffs, but the way he uses his guitar, I think John Chang himself said it was almost like a painter. And you can hear that in my favorite Discordance Axis song, which is known as Jigsaw. So here, John Chang has actually modified his vocal style to fit with the more chromatic riffs we have going on. So the riffs are all low and gargly, and John Chang himself was going, you know. It makes a lot of sense that he would change up his vocals like that from his usual screams, but then watch what happens when the song starts to change its tune a little bit. So John Chang changes up his vocals to match the keening texture of the guitars. Change up. There we go, melodic riff. Very interesting change up. But wait, oh, false start. We're not ready to change yet. But now the metamorphosis completes itself. So we have a very interesting melodic riff. And Dave Vitt changes up his drumming to alter the texture of the song as Martin lays in more guitar textures. So now the bass drums have gone away to give full dominance to the guitar textures. So you got Some nice ride cymbal rolls there that mirror the rollicking feel of that guitar riff. So you can see how they're manipulating a lot of different textures in concert. Snare drum and the bass drum are back. And now it starts to get heavy again as the melodic side of Discordance Axis and the brutal side reach a synthesis, resulting in a nihilistic conclusion as the song is cut off. I don't know, I thought that was pretty deep, and I would hope that you guys out there like that too, because that's one of my favorite grindcore songs of all time. So, Discordance Axis breaks up, which is sad, but then they come back as Gridlink, stick around for 3 more albums, which are all amazing, and then now they're on indefinite hiatus.
You're gonna find me dead! I'm gonna kill myself! I'm gonna be hanging from the bathroom!
So yeah, that's unfortunate, but luckily bands like Wormrot are kind of carrying on the tradition of Discordance Axis, and there's 3 amazing Discordance Axis albums to choose from, and 3 great Gridlink albums, and plenty of EPs and splits that are all fairly readily accessible. So if you get a chance, shit, nigga, grindcore song, what, like 30 seconds? Go check it out. You'll like it. See ya!
You have defied me! You will know that vengeance is Lord and Mangus! I promise you, nobody